Okay. I have nothing in my teeth. Asked my sister, and she told me, so that's good. All right, okay, one more. Okay, I don't know if any of you have noticed yet, who've been here before, that I've mentioned nothing about waves. Thank you, Sharon. Waves, you know. And yet I just did. And I have nothing in my teeth. Okay, we have a great event for you in store. Anybody feel like doing a wave? I can't help myself. Because you had such a great day. We'll get started over here. It's like 2, 3. Okay. Sharon's like, how long will this last? That was the best. I think that was the best one I've ever seen here. So you guys win a prize. And as a prize, talk to Hannah at the back after the event. You get a free sticker. You all get a free sticker right now. So wait, no, don't get up now. Don't stampede, it won't be safe. But after the event, get yourself a free sticker because we have some really cool stickers. Have you seen the stickers? Look at them back there. They're really great. I'm not repeating this for John. Hi. Come on in. Okay, so we have a great evening for you tonight. I'm still David Simpson, still the program director here. My pronouns are still he, him, his. And we have a great lineup. Tonight we're going to hear from poet Franny Choi. And also artist Lena Wolff, big hands, who my sister won't stop talking about in the car ride all the way back to our house. So, in good ways, really good ways, yes. So we're very excited to hear from both of you. Franny's going to read, Lena's going to give a presentation, then afterwards we'll have a Q&A with, as we often, if not always, do. Will you be able to ask your questions? Couple of items of housekeeping. Mark Adams, one of our favorite teachers, beloved member of the Falk family, is giving his walk tomorrow, Thursday. Today's Tuesday. Thursday, 1:30. So he's going to meet out here on the deck, and we'll do a walk. He'll do a walk around P-Town for an hour and a half, where he will share his abundant and wide knowledge about the natural and cultural history of P-Town and the Outer Cape. He knows his stuff. He worked for 30 years as a naturalist for the National Park Service, so knows everything. We actually have a book of his that he illustrated here. It's called a primer, something primer. Can anybody, is it down there? Yes, Sharon, hold it up. It's really, if you want to know about the natural history, that was a nice team effort there. Thank you. We're all about collaboration here at the Fine Arts Work Center. Seriously. Okay, so Thursday, 1:30. So if you haven't done it, it's really wonderful. So you'll learn a lot, and he's really great. We love him a lot. We have, as you may or may not know, we're doing a big relaunch of our online offerings. That's going to start in August. And one of the things we're going to do starting in August is a 4-week online workshop for all poetry students this summer that'll allow you to extend the work that you're doing in your workshops and keep the momentum going that you started doing in Franny's workshop this week. So if you're interested, Jennifer John, our online programming manager, will be sending all of the poetry students this week an email towards the end of the week with more details, and keep an eye out for more details on our website and so on and so forth. But it's a great opportunity just to really keep the magic going. So keep an eye out for that. Franny's going to be signing books at the back after the talk, which we're very excited about. She's going to sign at that table over there, but you can look at the books and buy the books over there along with our amazing merch. And let's see, what else do I want to tell you? If you haven't been to the gallery next door, please do check it out. Our summer exhibition called To Move a Mountain, curated by former fellow Cody Brown. Yep, his name is still Cody Brown. And features work by past fellows. It's really a wonderful show. Please check it out. And I'd like to give a shout out, as I always do, to the Arts Foundation of Cape Cod and the Cape Cod 5 Foundation for so generously supporting our summer public programming. Bathroom's still down the hall. Turn off your cell phones. Somebody last night didn't. I'm not going to call out anybody, but you know it's awkward. So save yourself that awkwardness and turn your cell phones to silent and double check, because sometimes I rarely have my phone on sound. But sometimes I do, and then I don't want to be embarrassed by that. So once we do that, I would love to invite one of Cameron's students, Anika, to the stage. Franny students. What did I say? Cameron. Whoops. See, I redo these every night, 3 nights a week, every all summer long. So I forgot to change that one Cameron to Franny. I mean, they're sort of, one of Franny's students to the stage to introduce. Thank you. Come on up.
Hello, friends. And thank you, David. My name is Anika Sari, and I have the pleasure and honor of introducing Franny Choi. During our first meeting as a class a couple nights ago, while we were doing introductions, I mentioned to Franny that we had both been at the University of Michigan at the same time. I was an undergraduate. They were in the Helen Zell Writers Program. What I didn't mention is that we did actually meet very briefly. No, it's fine. This is a good. It was around the time that their second collection, Soft Science, was released. I was extremely shy and anxious and probably wearing sweatpants and surrounded by a bunch of chic Ann Arbor, Michigan people who had really cool haircuts and very cool jackets. And I stood in line at Literati Bookstore to have my copy signed by Franny, who penned in it the inscription, "To Anika, with love in big, strange light." And that love in big, strange light is what has continued to pull me back to Franny's work again and again. That warmth and joy and vividity in the delightful oddities that can be found in her poems. This is not to say that the poems are devoid of sadness or trauma or darkness, but that Franny's poetry is characterized by possibility. The possibility, even the times that we live in, even in the world that we live in, for love, togetherness, community, and liberation to be nurtured and sustained. The possibility that the words you need to hear may come from the mouth of a cyborg or a ghost, but there is possibility. The title of our workshop for the week is Audacity, Excess, and Extravagance. And to say that I cannot think of another poet who I would rather be learning about audacity, extravagance, and excess with is an understatement. Franny Choi's books include The World Keeps Ending and The World Goes On, out from Ecco in 2022, a finalist for the Kingsley Tufts Poetry Award, Soft Science, which was published by Alice James Books in 2019, and Floating Brilliant Gone, released by Right Bloody Publishing in 2014. Choi's writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, the Paris Review, and elsewhere. Franny is the current Poet Laureate of Northampton, Massachusetts, and the founder of Brew Forge. She has 2 books forthcoming, a collection of essays about robots, and an anthology, We the Gathered Heat, Asian American and Pacific Islander Poetry, Performance and Spoken Word, which is co-edited by Terisa Siagatonu, Noah Revilla, and Bao Phi. Choi is in Faculty of Literature at Bennington College. Please join me in welcoming Franny Choi to the stage.
Anika, that was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. I'm so moved by that. And I'm so happy to know that we crossed paths before. And now I can't write with big, strange light in any of anyone's books. So that's good to know. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so thrilled to be working with these incredible students this week. Like, it's just been a blast. And thank you to, I made sure to write down some of these names so I don't leave anybody out. Thank you, David and Dustin and Hannah and Miracle and Chandra and Naya and Sharon and everybody else at the Fine Arts Work Center who has made this glorious week possible. I think that without too much further ado, I'll get into things. Let's see. Yes, so I'm going to start by reading a short piece of prose from one of the forthcoming book that Anika mentioned, which is a collection of essays about well, I think the shorthand way I don't really know how to talk about it yet because it's still in progress. But right now, the essay collection is sort of about robots. It's sort of about media representations of robots and the kind of racialized and gendered, spooky, weird ways that technological beings of all kinds, cyborgs, dolls, other sorts of like machine people are represented in the media. And I think it's also really just about like walking around in the world and feeling strange, feeling weird, and encountering various sorts of like strange reflections of oneself and what to kind of do with that. But so I'll start by reading a piece of nonfiction and then I'll go into some poems. Okay. So this one is called "Ghost in the Shell, Alien," and I have some visuals. Say it is the summer of 2023, in the city your parents left, the city that betrayed them by becoming unrecognizable by the time they return 20 years later. Say you are in Seoul, at the height of monsoon season, and the sweat melting your makeup is as familiar as a dream, though you've never lived in the city for longer than the 4 months you studied abroad there in college. Studied being generous, since you spent less of that time reading and more of it vomiting up soju and whiskey into the bathrooms of bars across Shincheon, and once even over the side of a strange man's bed, straight onto his clothes, out of your mind with grief as you were, just a few months since your boyfriend's funeral, and hardly anything able to penetrate the thick haze of the first real loss of your life. Say this is your second time back in the city since that blur of a semester, and this time you are 15 whole years older, and that much more clear-eyed, you assured your worried partner. There for work this time, you claimed to the dean when requesting the funding so you could gain a first-hand understanding of life among robots in contemporary South Korea. Alone this time, by choice, you insisted to yourself. You spend weeks riding the subway, checking neighbor maps at every stop, studying the Google Doc with your prepared list of cafes which employ robot baristas and servers. You cry every time you get on the wrong train. By day, you drink iced Americanos delivered to your table for one by cheerful autonomous carts and scribble notes about the feelings that arise as you watch them roll back to the counter. At night, you report your findings to your partner via voice notes or watch movies you should have seen already, of which your favorite is Ghost in the Shell, the classic 1995 anime film about a cyborg government assassin named Motoko Kusanagi, who is the first of her kind, a consciousness or ghost occupying a fully synthetic body, the shell. Other nights you consult your Naver Maps list of top-rated bars and post up with a book, chatting mildly with the bartender, but otherwise letting loneliness settle on the outside of your skin and accumulate there, form a protective exoskeleton that almost lets you pretend not to see the Kakao Talk messages from your family members who are alarmed at the idea of your eating all your meals alone. A writer needs solitude, you say to yourself, like an oath, as you sip your chamwa-infused gin fizz and try not to want so terribly to charm the bartender. You try instead to concentrate on growing your shell, to feel the spaciousness inside, that silence which you think Kusanagi is trying to touch when she dives each night into the black waters of the bay, the water muffling the sounds of the city and of other people's voices so that she might finally be able to hear her own. You are too sensitive, you think. You are a chronic people pleaser, by which you mean that the world is too good at reaching inside you. Sounds of the bartender's voice, joking with other customers, stupid ache rearing its head as you pass the barbecue restaurants with their tables full of friends and coworkers spilling into the street on your walk back to your Airbnb, almost but not quite, navigating there without your phone. Pretty good, you think, while in line inside the Too Bright convenience store, holding a single can of the beer you recognize from that K-drama you like, scrolling through the photos you took at the buffet last week with your cousins, the group picture at your grandmother's nursing home. Yes, you think, this could be enough. an accent decent enough to get through the transaction, a few familiar train lines, even a lesbian bar in Hongdae, and cousins whom you genuinely like, whose cheerful chatter you mostly understand, who are kind enough when you show them pictures of your wedding, explain that it's a gay wedding, that your spouse is transgender, kind enough despite their bewilderment at your life, so many worlds away. You suspect that despite everything you've said and written, some part of you likes being alien to them, that for the lines connecting you to other people to always have been a little frayed, a little forked, is the kind of belonging you are most comfortable with, that it is more unsettling, in fact, not to be an anomaly wherever you are. Would Major Kusanagi give up being the first of her kind in order to fit the way others fit? No, of course not, you think, drinking your beer on the rooftop patio of the Airbnb. No, this is the conceptual gift of the cyborg, the ability to take pleasure in unbelonging, to be unfaithful to one's origins. For the past decade or so, you have believed it a kind of superpower, a diasporic superpower, or maybe a queer one or a disabled one, to unbelong intimately, to not fit, to be both animal and machine, both born and made, and allegiant to no country, especially your own. You drink your beer and stare at the enormous glowing replica of the moon spinning slowly on the rooftop of some neighboring bar, feeling closer to it than to any of the people wandering the streets below you, feeling something close to, but not quite touching, happiness. Say it is the next day, 3 days before you're due to head home. Say you're on the train heading back from Bot Cafe, very highly rated, whose robot barista, the Drip Bot, is unfortunately out of service that day. Say you're scrolling mindlessly, anxiously on the train when you see the announcement. It's the final week of a group show at a small art gallery in Gangnam. The show's title, Ghost in the Shell. You switch trains and make it there an hour before it closes. Shake the monsoon rain from your flimsy travel umbrella before stepping across the threshold. You wander through the gallery and take photos of the distorted human figures, the factories churning out organs and microchips, modernity, coloniality, and all its usual monsters. You are just beginning to wonder if anyone will ever make anything new when you turn into a dark alcove in the far corner of the gallery and encounter you. You and not you, in the form of a slab of clear resin, 4 feet across and suspended by wire from the ceiling, in the middle of which is, what, a face? No, 2 faces, childlike, sleeping, overlapped. 2 painted faces, cradled in a nest of distended limbs, each ending in bulbous kelp-like figures. The sculpture, which is by an artist named Kajin Kim, seems to glow from within, and it takes you a minute to notice the lights positioned on the floor. Light streaming through the clear material so that it projects a watery amoeba onto the wall behind it, at the center of which lies a shadow where the figures are, their presence marked by a black unknown. The unknown moves across the room and touches you. Tangle of beings and origin stories that you are, tangle of all that language that has filtered and frustrated and blessedly enabled the light of others to reach you, not to understand that dark space at your center, perhaps, but to swim around it and thus to illuminate your life. You think of the last man you slept with in the city all those years ago, to whom you didn't respond when he messaged you on Facebook to tell you he was getting married. You think of the tight shame in your cousin's voice as she described how long she and her husband had tried before she gave up on motherhood. You think of the cranky butch bartender at the Hongdae bar asking after your grandmother. Yes, all you've ever wanted was to be close enough to other people to let your dark hearts overlap, And to have any hope of doing that, you see now, you realize, to have any hope of being with others, you must understand what you have always known, which is that each person around you is, when they descend into the black waters of unknowing at their center, just as alien to the world as you are. Thanks. So that's the end of the visual portion of it. So yeah, I can just kind of mute the screen. So I'll read now some poems from my book, The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On. Also, yeah, that was interesting. I've only read that piece out loud maybe like one time before, and so you learn things from reading it out loud. So yeah, thanks for being my unwitting test subjects. Thank you. I'll start by reading the title poem of this collection, which I wrote in a moment when I was feeling very deeply in despair. I think it was maybe just after the first election of Donald Trump. So yeah, late 2016. I felt like all signs pointed to this being like us just barreling towards the end of the world. And I was really just kind of just neck deep in unhope, in despair. And my partner, Cameron Awkward-Rich, who is very well read and very smart, quoted a line from an essay about Afrofuturism, and he said, I think it was a misquote, but it was profound. But he said something like, he referred to the essay, and he said something like, it might be helpful to remember that the apocalypse happened a long time ago, and that we and our people have long been surviving it. And that was comforting, morbidly comforting to me. And from that insight came this poem, The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On. Before the apocalypse, there was the apocalypse of boats. Boats of prisoners. Boats cracking under sky iron. Boats making corpses bloom like algae on the shore. Before the apocalypse, there was the apocalypse of the bombed mosque. There was the apocalypse of the taxi driver, warped by flame. There was the apocalypse of the leaving and the having left, of my mother unsticking herself from her mother's grave as the plane barreled down the runway. Before the apocalypse, there was the apocalypse of planes. There was the apocalypse of pipelines legislating their way through sacred water, and the apocalypse of the dogs, before which was the apocalypse of the dogs and the hoses, before which the apocalypse of dogs and slave catchers whose faces glowed by lantern light. Before the apocalypse of bees, the apocalypse of buses, border fence apocalypse, coat hanger apocalypse, apocalypse in the textbook's selective silences. There was the apocalypse of the settlement and the soda machine, the apocalypse of the settlement and the jars of scalps. There was the bedlam of the cannery, the radioactive rain, the chairless martyr demanding a name. I was born from an apocalypse and have come to tell you what I know, which is that the apocalypse began when Columbus praised God and lowered his anchor. It began when a continent was drawn into cutlets. It began when Kublai Khan told Marco, begin at the beginning. By the time the apocalypse began, the world had already ended. It ended every day for a century or two. It ended, and another ending world spun in its place. It ended, and we woke up and ordered Greek coffees, drew the hot liquid through our teeth as everywhere the apocalypse rumbled, the apocalypse remembered, our dear, beloved apocalypse. It drifted slowly from the trees all around us, so loud we finally stopped hearing it. I tried to choose poems that would kind of embody some of the themes of our class: audacity, extravagance, excess. So this next one is I think like a I would say emotionally extravagant one. It's called "Catastrophe is Next to Godliness." Catastrophe. Oop, there go my papers. Catastrophe is next to godliness. Lord, I confess I want the clarity of catastrophe, but not the catastrophe. Like everyone else, I want a storm I can dance in. I want an excuse to change my life. The day Arun died, the sun was brighter than any sun. I answered the phone, and a channel opened between my stupid head and heaven, or what was left of it. The blankness stared back, and I made sound after sound with my blood-wet gullet. Oh, unsayable, oh, tender and divine, unsayable, I knew you then. You line straight to the planet's calamitous core. You moment, moment, moment. You intimate abyss I called sister for a good reason. When the bad thing happened, I saw every blade. And every year I find out what they've done to us, I shed another skin. I get closer to open air, true north. Lord, if I say, bless the cold water you throw on my face, does that make me a costume party? Am I greedy for comfort if I ask you not to kill my friends? If I beg you to press your heel against my throat? Please, not enough to ruin me, but just so I can almost see your face. Yeah, see now, thank you. Now we're in this thing where it's like, oh, do we clap after every poem? Do we not clap after every poem? Like, it's hard to say, right? So my rule is that whatever happens, if we just decide that it's not awkward, then it's not awkward, right? Yeah, we'll just decide that it's not awkward. So you can clap, you can snap, you can just take a breath, you can sit perfectly in perfect holy silence, and any of the above is perfectly fine. And I'm with you. I feel your energy. I know that we're here in this room together. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, whatever happens is cool. This one is called "Disaster Means Without a Star," which is true. Disaster without a star. 66 million years after the end of the world, I click purchase on an emergency go bag from Amazon.com. When it arrives, I'll use my teeth to tear open the plastic, unzip the pack stitched by girls who look like me, but for their N95s, half a judgment day away, no evacuation plan in sight. Another episode of the present tense, and I can't stop thinking about the timeline where the asteroid misses. Earth ruled eternally by the car-hearted and walnut-brained. Meanwhile, I'm merely gorging on the butterfly effects of ashes, reaching for the oat milk, while hundreds of feet below, a chalk line marks the moment we were all doomed. We were done for. We were science fiction before science or fiction. 1 billion judgment days later, I'm alive and ashamed of my purchases. I'm afraid of being afraid. I'm the world's worst mother. My sister calls and it's already too late for things to be better. Every mistake, an asteroid that's already hit. History already mushroomed into 1 million species of unfit. Their fossilized corpses already forming coastlines, austere offices. This year was a layer cake of catastrophe long before any of us could, biologically speaking, have been imagined. Human history, a front parlor, infinitely painted over with massacre, and into the fray came I, highly allergic, quick to cry, and armed with fat fists of need. I broke everything I touched. I got good grades. I was told nothing was more noble than to ensure my children would eat. I learned to take a chicken apart with my hands, to fill in a Scantron, to cry on cue. 66 million years after the last great extinction, 6 to 8 business days before the next one, I whispered, speak to a fucking agent into the hold music to trigger the system into connecting me with a real person. I avoided coughing in public, though it was too late. I applied for a BIPOC farming intensive, though it was too late for the earth to yield anything but more corpses. New species of horror sequence were already evolving. Election bot, cluster biobomb, driver serverless wife. I muttered curses to keep the deep fakes away, studied the stars for signs of the worlds to come, though they were already here. The extinctions and feudal lords, the dirty blankets, the dissidents tied to stakes or hung from branches, the price gouge, death camp, flood, bombs of liberty, bomb and bomb and bomb already dropped, already having made me from its dust, already broken and paid for and straddling my crown. What crown? If I'm king of anything, it's being late. OMW, I type, though I'm still huddled in last year's mistakes. Asteroid, Alexa corrects, and I say, 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll be right there. Ooh, man, 20 minutes is a short amount of time, it turns out. So I'm just going to read one last one. But before that, I guess I think that I would be remiss not to talk really briefly about the organization that I started a few years ago called Brew Forge, which was mentioned in my introduction. It's an organization that tries to put poets and movement organizers in contact with each other and build relationships between them. So one of the things that we do is biannual. The version where it means every 2 years, not twice a year. Every 2 years, we put on this retreat for poets and movement organizers of color who are based in the Northeast to get together and learn from each other and write together and imagine new worlds together. And it's just like a magical thing. And the other big thing that we do is that we have an annual movement fundraiser book fair where a bunch of authors, like 50 to 100 authors, donate signed copies of their books, put them up online, and then all of the proceeds go to like a grassroots organization that could really use like $5,000 right now. So we've raised, a few years ago, we raised $9,000 for the Palestinian Feminist Collective. Last year we were working with Adamir, we funded Adamir, who is Palestinian-based organization that supports political prisoners, Palestinian political prisoners. So if you want to know more about that, it's brewandforge.com, and you can learn all about all the cool stuff that we're doing. So on that note, this book has a lot of things about how it spends a lot of time in the present and the past of apocalypse, and there are some poems that happen sort of in the future and try to imagine newer and better worlds. And this one is called On How. It's just a short one. It's one that I wrote after my dear friend, the poet Nate Marshall, kind of trying to answer the question of, okay, abolition, this sounds cool, but like, how is that even possible? How would we even reach abolition? So this is called On How. Oh, and then the little game that I played for myself, the nerdy poetry game that I played for myself, was that I tried to have as many stressed syllables as possible as I was writing. Okay, so it's because it's like work. On How. We wrote new chants and bailed folks out and plate scooped meals and healed old wounds and walked cold blocks and drummed up, stumped, and stole back land, and claimed back facts, and sowed loud flags, and sowed right crops, and cut cops cash, and heaved gold rot, and let go ghosts, and surged road crests, and spread wealth flat, and clawed down walls, and learned harm, and nixed cruel laws, and crowd-sourced grace, and ground teeth down, and laid cards flat, and dug toward hope, and sang off key, and worked through shit, and took sweet time, and pre-lived worlds, and dreamed past doom, and walked, fell, walked, fell, walked, fell, walked. Thank you all.
Such great words. Franny Choi. Yep, she saw what I did. Thank you so much. That was amazing. And also, thank you, Annika, for your wonderful introduction. And now I'd like to invite one of Lena Wolff's students, who also happens to be our amazing and beloved Director of Administration, Naya Brecker, to the stage to introduce Lena.
Thanks, David. As David said, I'm a student this week, so I'll introduce myself. My name's Naya Brecker, and I am thrilled to be taking the Color Lab workshop this week. This is actually my first workshop outside of the print studio, which feels like a specific experience for me. It's such a joyful space upstairs. We're in Studio 7 and 8, and I can't wait to share what we've been working on. It's already just day 2, and Lena had us reflect on our experience the first day and just jot down anything that we learned or anything we're thinking about. And I feel very validated to learn that pink is more powerful than red when it comes to prismatic color wheels. I love pink. I'm wearing pink. Didn't realize I was going to be talking about that when I got dressed this morning, but magenta, it's just one of those primary colors that you can see when you come up to our classroom on Thursday. So Lena Wolff is an artist, craftswoman, and activist for democracy in equal parts. And she is guiding us from the center of our beautiful classroom through a rainbow of gouache paints. It's only day 2, and we are fully immersed in hue and value and saturation, and having a great time, even though it's a learning curve, and we're in it. Her work extends out of American quilt making traditions, while at the same time being rooted in minimalism, geometric abstraction, op art, social practice, feminist, and political art. Wolff's interconnected artistic output includes drawing, collage, sculpture, frequent collaboration, and public projects, and her work is in the permanent collections of the One National Lesbian and Gay Archives, the Berkeley Art Museum, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and the Oakland Museum of California, among others. She lives with her wife, artist Miriam Klein Stahl, and FOC faculty, and their daughter in Berkeley, California. Thank you so much for guiding us. I can't wait for the rest of the week. I believe we get chromatic grays tomorrow. Ooh, yeah, I know. Well, I'll pass it over to Lena. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Just first, thank you to FOC. This is like, so Miriam and I were both here last week, and it was like gay art camp, and this week it's just everybody art camp, and it's all so fun. It's like my summer camp dreams come true as an adult, and it's wonderful. So and everyone is so welcoming. And there's like 2 things that, can you guys hear me? I feel a little weird right now with this microphone. Is it right? It's just in my face.
There you go.
Okay. Is that all right?
Yeah, but use it because
Okay.
people need to hear you.
Okay. Now I kind of forgot what I was. Oh no, I remember. Yeah, all these people said that the thing that's so amazing about this place is that like it's really rigorous learning. There's such incredible students and teachers here, but it's also just really down to earth. So I feel that the whole time. It's so nice and refreshing because not all kind of art institution places can feel like this. So that's because of what you guys do, and thank you. Oh, and this is also my first time teaching here, so I feel just really happy that, so, we came last, what's that? Oh my God, that's like my dream. All the teachers like, I hope they ask us back. So yeah, welcome everyone, and all my students are so wonderful too. So just thanks to everybody. Yeah, the majority of the visual artwork that I do right now is based in quilt patterns and forms, and this is a piece that I didn't make, but that is like, if there was one piece as an artist that I would just look to, like, for some light, this is it. I love this. First of all, I love pattern, and what she's done here is use the word freedom to form a pattern with the word, which makes it so emphatic. And the story behind the quilt is that I really look at quilts maybe even more than like contemporary art. And so there's a whole category of quilts that were made during the Civil War. And when I first saw this quilt, I thought that it was a Civil War era quilt related to emancipation from slavery. But this quilt was made, this is a Black quilt maker, Jessie Telfair, and her story is that she was a cafeteria lunch worker in a public school in Georgia, and she was fired in 1960-something for trying to take the day off to vote. And so this is a piece she made a decade later in response to that experience, and it's in the collection of the American Folk Art Museum. Okay. So this is a book by Glenn Adamson, who he draws, it's a pretty new book, and he draws these connections that exist between histories of craft practices in America and activism for social justice. It's a gorgeous book. It's pretty dense, like history, but I learned so much from reading it, and my work, I feel like, is a part of that tradition. This is me. So I made this, like, switched working with quilt patterns and imagery really intentionally, like maybe 13 years ago, just kind of tired of what I was doing. And it was mainly probably initially because quilts are mesmerizing and beautiful and spellbinding, and I love them. But then also what it is, it's like I got to go into this way of working with these patterns that are shared images. So it's much less about individualism, although there are really individual idiosyncratic ways of being a quilt maker. But when you work with the patterns, you're like tapping into this shared history that connects the past and the future, the personal and the political. And I just started adding some images about my life into my slideshow recently, which I never used to do. But anyway, this is my wife, Miriam, on the left, or no, on the right. And that's Daniel, who was her partner at the time and is now our daughter's godparent. And I don't know, I think just in this, like, political moment, like, I don't know, you look at me and you don't think I'm a lesbian. And I feel like it's important a little bit for me to talk about, like, our lives in queer community, and also feeling that, like, right now in this horrible political moment, that looking to queer community and also looking at the resistance movements led by people of color can really help guide us to learn how to handle what's going on right now. And that no one has to reinvent the wheel. Like, people have been working for centuries, and especially, just there are ways of existing, there are ways of persevering, and so looking to that for some answers right now. This is us when we were little babies. We've been together for 25 years. That's my apartment on Cap Street in San Francisco. And there we are with our daughter, who just turned 18 a few weeks ago. And then these are it's kind of hard to see these in the light. These are, so the way that I work, I make not quilts. I make collages, sculptures, and drawings based on quilt patterns. So, like, taking a pattern and moving it through several mediums. So these are, what I do with these is what we're doing in our class, which is we're hand painting, hand mixing colors, painting paper, cutting paper, assembling quilts or collages in a quilt way. Also, I had to really learn geometry when I started to get into quilt patterns, which I was terrible at. I got a D in geometry, and I was a really good student, but it's not intuitive for me. So I had to draw a lot to get to the patterns, to understand them. And eventually I realized, oh my God, the drawings are beautiful and geometry is beautiful. So I started showing the drawings, which the drawings kind of became they're like improvisations on the inner architecture of patterns. And someone asked me recently at a artist talk they gave, they asked me, they said, do you have like a spiritual connection to your work? And I'd honestly never thought about it really, but I realized that if I do have one, it's that pattern, geometry, has shown me this elegance that exists in the universe in terms of shape and the connection. It's the dots line up when you do it, like points line up. And how does that, it's a beautiful thing. And it's also really connected to nature. Like in nature, we see variation of pattern all the time, of this, this infinite variety. So really all of these are rooted, almost all of these are rooted in one pattern, the 8-pointed star. And so that's amazing. Like just from that one pattern, I could spend my whole life. I kind of did. I spent like a decade working with this one pattern. And then at a certain point, I started kind of going back to some work that included more kind of plant and animal imagery, thinking about quilt patterns as symbols. Many quilt patterns have symbolic meaning. A lot of them are rooted in nature, so they'll be related to like, maple leaf, whatever. But then there are also there's so much symbolic meaning in each pattern. And then, so I started playing with that and also playing with this sort of the way of creating kind of a grammar or a meaning when placing certain symbols next to each other. So this is Quilt for the Future, and it combines images from sampler quilts from the 1800s with my own symbols for equality, sustainability, the open hand, like open borders, welcoming. And then there's this really specific grammar here of the arrow pointing to equal justice, and I was thinking about the Equal Justice Initiative. So starting to work with there's thousands and thousands of motifs and patterns, and through that you can create meaning with their arrangement. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to know what it is, but it's there, and you can look at it and think about what. And so then these are just some of those same drawings on this blue watercolor paper. I did these after my mom died, and she loved this color blue that I worked with, and I called them Drawings for Mourning, but M-O-R, like the mourning rather than mourning of grief, but it was kind of a process that going through these. And then that's a wood sculpture, a 3-dimensional wood sculpture based on that drawing. So just showing like moving through, taking a motif and moving it in another. It feels like a little bit of a shape-shifting exercise. And then also like quilts are so like thought of as like so feminine, and then wood is considered kind of more masculine. So it's a little bit, to me, even there's like a bit of just a shifting. And this is the wood shop. It's so fun. So this is, I actually work with a woodworker to make these because at a certain point, I can't do everything. So I learned through public art opportunities that I could work with somebody to make something in a new material if I was closely involved in the process. So this was Greg Zoll. He's not alive anymore, but he's like the foremost marquetry expert in the country. And he helped me to make these. So I show the one on the left because these really finished, like perfect, like gallery photos sometimes don't show the texture. So the one on the left actually in the wood shop shows like more of the dimension. So originally that's the 8-pointed star kind of just with the corners cut and then just other shapes rolling in. And this shows just another piece just from the side to show dimension. That's it on the right. And that's a collage on the left that's related to the same pattern. And those collages are just white paper cut in relief, set with a background. And then this is one with a lot of marquetry. So all of it is, it's like a process of inlay, but it's where there's less of a gap between the pieces of wood, so it's totally seamless. Like the wood is cut at a bevel. And then on the left, that's just another wood piece with copper. The one on the right is copper. And then so for being so obsessed with quilts, I don't really work with fabric that much, but when I do, I'm normally making text works. So this All for Wood for All was like about finding endless variation within a single pattern, but also this desire for more quality in the world at large. And another embroidery piece. And then this piece I made over the course of a year during the pandemic. And it was loosely based on the Jane Sickle quilt, which is on the left, that was made in Vermont during the Civil War. It's a really unique quilt because every single square is a unique, there's no repetition of motifs. So they're all unique. So the piece on the right is about half of the images come from that quilt. And, part of the fun is like figuring out the patterns, doing the drawing, and then including other drawings that I made in my studio that have symbolic, significant meaning. And also just sort of connecting that political moment to our own. So, images that I've included represent equality, democracy, inclusion, queer culture, plant forms, and cosmic images of the universe. That's me I actually had to put it together not in my studio because it was so big. And it's actually just kind of sad when it's gone. So I don't know. I don't even have time to talk about this, but I'm decided this year after the election that I'm not going to sell art for money anymore. And it's partly why I'm teaching, because I just don't want to I would rather give it to people I love. So anyway, partly to keep this project going, to have a little reminder of it, and because someone who I know who has a concrete fabrication studio asked me if I wanted to make anything in concrete, and I said, yes, I do. And so these are, on the left are 3D prints made from the relief squares from A Language for the Commons, which was that big one. And then it's a really long process. You make the 3D print, and then a mold is made, and then the concrete is cast. And from that, I made concrete quilt, and I have a series of them going. And I sort of really love it because, first of all, they're so heavy. They're like 200 pounds. And then I can play around with the motifs still. So I'm making 10 in the series. They're all different dimensions, different composition and repetition of the motifs. So they're unique. That just shows scale, and that shows the scale of a wood piece. And then I also started just sort of working with these like improvisations on a circle and half circles. And this was one of my favorite commissions. I was asked by the woman who organizes the Stanford Art Collection at the hospital to make 3 works for a morgue. And this is a room where people go to view their loved one for the last time after they've died in the hospital. And it was for children and for adults who had died. And anyway, it just felt incredible. Like, this is the kind of situation where I want to make this work. I want it to be there, and I'll keep doing it. I have a lot of work in hospitals. But it was such an honor to be asked to do it. And then just the theme of like the circles and the circularity of life and death, and being also just really non-denominational, just something evocative. So I made 3 pieces for that space. And then these are just some color collages with the circles. I started making these kind of like almost toppling forms, sort of feeling like the insecurity of our times that we're living in. So they're staying up, but they're like feeling like they might fall over. There's a couple more. And then I'm doing this large outdoor concrete quilt in San Francisco. And it's going to be this big. It's like 100 feet long. It'll be the only outdoor piece I've ever made. It's for a company, Genentech, and I did it. There's a thing in SF, San Francisco, 1% for the arts. If there's a large budget for a project, the builders have to work with an artist for a public art piece. So anyway, I made, some of the images are from my studio, and these are larger tiles, 18 by 18 inches, but some of them are related to their work, and this is a lymphocyte, which is a type of cell that fights cancer. And these are more of the tiles in the fabrication studio, and it'll be installed maybe this summer. Public art projects take a really long time. And these are just other collages. On the right is I made this one this last year. It's like the equality symbol in kind of muted rainbow colors, repeated. And this is another, all my color class people will understand why I made them take one color and make variations of one color today, because I'm sort of obsessed with how that happens. So, and then this is just the fallout of the election in 2016. I'll go through these a little faster, but this is what the city of Berkeley looked like right after the election in 2017. There was a lot of violence in our city. And it was really scary. It was really like, this is a different time that we're living in. And we knew the mayor just because he was our city council person. I ran into him and I said, well, maybe Jesse, why don't you ask artists to make a response to what's happening? Because most of us don't want to go out and get into a fist fight with a Proud Boy. Like, I'm not going to go do that. I mean, some of my friends might, but like, how do we say this is totally unacceptable? Like, what do we do? And maybe ask artists to help out. So I think he called me like 4 days before some big, rally was going to happen. And he said, can you make us a poster? And because he was the mayor and he doesn't understand art making, I said yes. I was like, okay, 4 days, sure. So I invited my wife, Miriam, teaches at Berkeley High, and she has a lot of former students who are amazing. And one of them came over who's a graphic designer, because I'm not that. And we just came up with this simple phrase, really united state, whatever. United, the kind of muted red, white, and blue. And then the city paid for $25,000 to be printed. That's the mayor with Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who's now the mayor of Oakland, wonderfully. And then what happened with this poster is like a bazillion. There were all of a sudden many of them everywhere. They're still visible in the Bay Area. Like 500,000 ended up being printed for 10 Bay Area cities. And then even that projection of the image over there on the left, I just saw the other day for the first time. So there was something about this where I was like, oh, you can make a simple message, and if you make it like nice to look at, people will want it around. And it was a nice way for our community to be able to say, this is like what we're going through is unacceptable. And then starting in 2018, I was like, okay, I'm sick of these posters that are about being against something. And I mean, not sick of them. I'm sad that they're still relevant. But it was important to me. I thought, okay, if they really spread so much, I want to make something that's about what we can do to change the situation. And honestly, it's like, get him out of office. So like, that's what we can do. So we first just made Vote for Democracy. They never name a candidate. They never name a party. And they didn't even have our names on it anywhere to begin with. It was just a message urging people to vote for reasons, for issues, rather than for a single. And because of that, too, they could end up in restaurants where people could be like, oh, I don't have a Biden sign in my window, but I can put this up. So for that reason, they could really spread. So we ended up printing a bunch of them. We printed some in Tagalog and Mandarin, Spanish, and we printed 35,000 and sent them to 25 states ahead of the 2020 midterm. I love that one. That's divine right there. Okay, and then people would just pick them up on porches. So they were they're always given away for free, never sold, circulated around the country, and a way for like to contribute, add to existing, get out the vote efforts. So just to sort of add a little spark to those sites. This was posted on the last day to register to vote in Maricopa County, which ended up being like a really important. It's also, I have to say, very bittersweet to be showing these, because I feel like, oh, we did it. Even though, I know it's not ever perfect, but it's not as bad as. Anyway, it's bittersweet. This is a library in Florida, and when I made these, I was like, God, would they even put these up in the library? When I made posters 2 years later, because of all the banning of content. And this is a workers' rights organization in San Antonio, Texas. The awesome thing about this project is I don't even document it. People just send me images. So I just get to, they just come. This is a disability rights advocate and writer. And the Orlando Weekly printed them so that you could cut it out of the paper and put them up. And that was like a protest or parade that happened in the town. And we made postcards so people could write postcards to voters. This is a race I was writing for anyway, she won, this Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin. That's my friend's grandma. And then we also made just free downloads. So if you didn't get a poster, you could 8.5 by 11 print them. Printmakers could use them. That's a kid in Brooklyn wheat pasting from the free downloads. And these are just some young people in Chicago. So the way that it spread was just like, it was a wonderful I still feel like it's the most important thing, I've done. And then something really nice happened in 19, where the mayor of Berkeley named a day after me and Miriam. I know. And it really was like such an art. It was also the work that I've always done with the least purpose of being, like, my name's not on it. There was no intention of being recognized. So being recognized like that in our city was really wonderful. Miriam always says she wants to have a pet parade on the day of our day. That's Miriam. That's oh, and this is Miriam's classroom. I know, but look at it. These are all her students who on our day, they knew it was our day, and they made this big banner for her when she came to class. Those are her amazing kids. And then Hope started working with me as my graphic design collaborator in 2022. She's an amazing graphic designer. And we designed the Vote for Reproductive Freedom poster before the Dobbs decision came down because we knew it was going to happen. So we had designed it maybe 2 or 3 months before the decision so that we would be ready. And then they end up, someone sends me a picture of the poster. I love that one. And then also we included a Vote for Trans Rights poster in 2022. And then Vote for the Planet. This is the Berkeley Art Museum, puts them up ahead of elections. I do feel like a little sad just showing these. It's so, anyway. And then billboards. We got to do a billboard project with an organization, Save Art Space. We put up like just a gazillion of them in swing states. We were really specific about where we sent them. And I also at the same time was fundraising for grassroots voting organizations every election cycle in a big way. So I was doing it all together. It's kind of been my, it was really like my life's work from the time that Trump first got elected. So this year has been really hard, like the recalibration of how to, and then also feeling like these issues weren't enough to, like the issues that I care about, and that we probably all get that they weren't enough this time. And also thinking very squarely and seriously about how income inequality is affecting people and their perception of the government that hasn't really taken care of people well for a long time. So I'm hoping and feeling like there might be some solidarity coming up where like as a people we can just say, we're being so badly taken care of and our kids can't rent an apartment and it's really hard to go to the grocery store. Like that's happening to most people in America. And maybe that'll, I don't know. Oh, this is a reproductive freedom billboard in North Carolina. Anyway, and I made this one for the last year. And sent them to independent bookstores around the country. But for those of you I will say this, I always have to say this when I'm like at a nonprofit, like Falk is not telling me to talk about anything partisan, but if you are interested in like how do I help with future elections, Movement Voter Project is an organization that funds like 600 grassroots voting organizations primarily led by people of color across the country. They're phenomenal. You might not have heard of them because they're so small, but I stopped donating to candidates 10 years. I never give money to candidates. I never give money to the DNC, and no one has to. Like they have enough money. So these organizations work year round. They work on local issues. One of them, like the Latinx organization in Arizona that I help fund, Lucha, they have DACA workshops. So they do more than just get out the vote, but they really get out the vote. And they're partisan, so they can tell people how to vote. They can help guide people. So if you're looking for like a place where, how do I donate, spend a little Movement Voter Project, they have it all covered. The States Project and Sister District are also really good. And just like everyone, let's just go to those No Kings, let's all get out there. The more people that there are, it's not gonna take, they say it takes 3.5% of the population to overthrow a fascist government, so we can do that, right? We can do it. Yeah. Oh, God. I think I'm probably past my time. Can I say one thing about color theory? Okay. Okay. So the thing about color, the reason why, I'm kind of ruining the big, exciting reveal of the most profound part of this whole thing before I'm actually, anyway, my students are getting this before I want them to. But so the rule of relativity, color's not singular. For every given color we look at, our eye poses a complementary contrast. Johannes Itten described this as a phenomenon in which our eye seeks to restore equilibrium to itself. The visual experience is related to the idea in physics that for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. So those two, oh, there's a point. How do you find them? Oh. That and that are the same, but your eye cannot read them as the same because our eye can't read the same color as the same in two different contexts, right? So you can see on the right that they are the same color. So this beautiful book, Carlo Rovelli, this physicist, writes, and this is related to why the colors change. The latest research in quantum physics reveals that all of the variable properties of an object in the final analysis are such and exist only with respect to other objects. Nothing exists except in relationship to something else. Contextuality is the technical name that denotes the central aspect of reality, that things exist in context. So the way we perceive color as relative, relational, and contextual is emblematic of a fundamental reality, the fundamental reality of interdependence that governs the universe at large. In this way, our visual experience of color interaction demonstrates something profound at the core of our existence and everything that makes up our world. In Hegloland, Ravelli talks about this as a case for a politics of cooperation rather than isolation. And you are the other me. So questions have also come up a lot last week about hope, and just preemptively, just to say that too much despair will fuel fascism. So just like, let's get out of it. Let's we're here, we're breathing, we probably ate some good food today, we got to swim. Just this other thing of not being so sure of if we're all sure that everything is fucked, it's probably gonna be, you know? So being open to the idea that it doesn't have to be, and only if we live by that will we be able to change the future. So and also that we're not alone. We're all together in this. There's so many. We're really not. And you can't do it alone. Anyway. We're together, and we just have to do this together. And hope is a discipline. Also, this thing, being a mom, a parent. We, and all of us, even if you're not a parent, we're the future ancestors of the children living today. Let us earn the honor of being such a thing. 2 things for hope. An Immense World, which talks about the senses and the experiences of animals. I really recommend reading this to just get out of the humanness of ourselves. And Dr. Anaya Johnson she's a climate scientist, and she wrote the book, What If We Get It Right? She has an amazing Substack. So following, part of the hope too is just following people who have good solutions and answers, and really listening to them. There's a ton of people, so. I'm sort of I'm giving myself a pep talk as I give you guys a pep talk, but it's really true. And I believe in all the people around me are so loving and lovely. And we have to actually work though, democracy requires participation. So it means, we have to, even if we're tired, we're not that tired. We always we watch some TV and, we have time. Oh, these 2 books. Just read these 2 books about your art will save your life. Your brain on art. Think about less when you make whether or not your work is good, and more about how interested you feel when you're making it. And that's my mantra for my life now. It's a collage I made last year. It's our job now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, both of you, for speaking. It was really enlightening and fun to listen to. Lena, a real interesting thing for me is like hearing how artists' lives change. And it was really interesting hearing you talk about how geometry and a different form of thinking changed your life. Could you talk a little bit about like what that did to your, how that changed how you acted, how you thought, and what you did just by learning a different sort of language?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thanks, Roddy. Yeah, happy birthday, Roddy. I love you. Yeah. How did it? Well, one thing I'll say is I think as I get older, and I talk about this in my color workshop a bit, the thing that I feel more and more as an artist is that I'm only partly, the thing that's happening when I'm making and when anyone makes is an interaction with the thing that you're making. Like you have an idea in your mind of what you want to make, and then you make it, and then you're responding to what you make. And it's this really nice, like I think part of the geometry is like I felt really humble because I was like, I don't fucking understand this, like at all. And then I got to learn, from doing it, I got to learn something, like some beauty about the universe, you know? And so that's like really the thing of art that for all of us is like being in a place of interaction with what you're making. And you're learning, it's so dynamic. And I don't know if it changed my practice necessarily that, but like, it was just another window into something of like, oh my, that you just get to like be in and learn. I feel like art teaches me. I'm learning from art all the time. And the more I go into it feeling like I don't have the answers, the better.
I'll just say that I really resonate with everything that Lena just said. I think that one of the most important things I've learned to do over the course of my life as a writer is to listen to the poem, you know, to listen to what it tells you. The poem will say, like, I want to be one long stanza, or I want to be uneven tercets, or like I want, you know, or like I need more like grit and grime. And I think that to develop that kind of ear for your own work and that receptivity to your own work is huge. I mean, I guess on the subject of like transitioning from one kind of like genre or medium or kind of making to another, the moving between poetry and prose has just been like really interesting to me. They literally just like take up different amounts and kinds of time. Like poem, like I was talking about this with some of the folks in my class earlier, but you know, you can kind of like let something marinate and cook and ferment inside of you for a long time and then just like write a poem in like 15 minutes, you know? But prose, you have to literally like sit there and write out the paragraph. Like it's a lot of typing. And I think I had to kind of learn to work at a different pace and also to learn to hide actually a little bit less in nonfiction first person, because you can say like my mother was a bird, you know, in a poem, and you can get away with that, and you have to back up the facts that you say in nonfiction, otherwise people will be mad at you. And I think that actually, you know, it's I'm kind of joking about it because it's, you know, gotten me into some weird corners, but it actually was it kind of rewired my brain a little bit. Like, what would it mean actually as a poet to have to kind of back up what I'm saying, not just on an emotional truth level, but also be able to kind of fact check some of it, and to work at a different scale where the aim wasn't just like a gesture toward a feeling that had long been brewing, but building an argument kind of from the foundation up. I really do feel like it's kind of rewired my brain. And I think that that's the point, to me, that's the point of making art, is to kind of be changed by the process. And so moving from one genre to another has really helped with that. Shout out to Miracle.
But that was wonderful. I love that there's sort of a synchronicity that you're both sort of peddling hope and making us believe it.
Peddling hope.
I'm really obsessed with the relationship between feeling and form in both of your work. And in the last poem where you're trying to envision a future, we have these stressed syllables. In the work that's in the morgue, you have these different sized and proportioned and related circles and semicircles. I'm wondering how you envision the relationship between the formal elements, the craft elements, and the feeling and the message that you're trying to express. Do you feel it out intuitively, or are there principles that you use?
That is a great question. It's such a good question. I can take a stab at it first. I think that for me, it has been, especially in poems, it's been really important for me to be able to make instinctual moves on the page, to respond in the moment to things. But that doesn't happen I think that this is the book where I was doing that the most, but it was because I had practiced the most, It was the one where I had played with all of the tools enough that I knew which one to pick up at any given moment in response to what was happening, right? Like, you take a lot of improv classes and then you do like one sketch or like one improv game, or you play jazz for like a bunch of years so that you can improvise when you get up on stage. And so that I think is kind of, that to me is part of it, that to know when the syllables, for example, should be really stressed, or a line should be really short so that you can be emphatic and have a lot of downbeats. Like, I don't know. I think it's just sort of about getting the reps in. I think there was something else that I wanted to say. I guess like the kind of relationship between, you mentioned hope and or like the sort of like political message or something of the work and the way that kind of manifests in form. It's a great question. I think like an entire syllabus could be built around that question, right? Like the politicized form in poetry. But I think that the one thing that I'll say in response right now is that to not go into a poem or any piece of writing for me knowing how I think it's going to end has been really like an exercise in like living in this historical moment, to try really hard not to predict the ending. I mean, that's like a lesson I learned in the one acting class I took in college. Like, try not to just to predict and indicate the feeling that you want to convey. Like, try to be in the moment, say the thing that you mean, and then the thing will happen. The effect will happen, right? Yeah.
Hello? Is it working? Okay. I think sometimes with the form and feeling, I'm thinking about it, and I think somehow you're just going to be drawn to the right form if you pay attention to the feeling, and that I think that comes first, maybe the feeling, and then you'll understand why. Like, then you just get drawn to the thing. And then sometimes you'll see things, meanings that you didn't even know were there before. I think that's my only way of answering that. Yeah.
Thanks. I think you both have really profound ways of like carrying the weight of the world and like your political situation in your art. But I was also wondering, it's a very cliche question, but do you think that your craft has like made you fall in love with like more personal parts of your life?
Oh, y'all are really asking these questions. This is really good. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Okay. I will actually say, I think, can you hear me? Okay. I think one of the things that actually happened to me with working with the quilt patterns, because they have, I don't know, the anything that was personal related to the symbols were kind of hidden. And I actually think I was kind of trying to get away from being too personal, partly because when I was younger, I think I felt like when I was too personal with my work, it was too much. It was actually like too much, and I didn't, also I wasn't necessarily getting, actually I don't know what to say, except I think now I'm wanting to connect a little bit more with like my inner life, but I find I'm writing a little bit for the first time and like not having done it in 20 years. So I think there's different, for me, there's different mediums are good for different forms of expression, and the visual art feels more like symbolic, and there's a lot of metaphor. And if I was gonna write or express something personal, I'd probably do it in words rather than through visual. I wouldn't want it, especially the context that your work ends up in. Like it just goes away or it's on someone else's wall. I don't think I want it there.
I mean, I love this question of Miri of whether art has kind of brought us, put us in touch with something more, you know, helped us fall in love with something more personal, something about ourselves. And I think that the first thing I want to say is that, you know, I mean, like people have been saying, what feminists have been saying, the personal is political for like at least 50 years at this point, right? And so, like to kind of remember that any sort of like rallying cry or like a kind of political objective I might try to make in my poem, it will never like transmit the heat that I feel in my body, like when in that like despair and rage, unless I bring some messy, gushy part of myself into it. That for me, I mean, it's a question of craft as much as it is a question of like how we kind of like shape and transmit our politics. But also, I think that the poems have helped me to both see, my work has always been very personal, and the work has helped me to kind of like fall in love with the kind of grotesque and harder, more difficult parts of myself, because there's something about bringing that to life with language and like working really hard to render that as faithfully in language as I can, where like beauty has to be part of the picture in that, or beauty has to be part of the project. But then after kind of traveling through this, like, let me honor the ugly parts of myself, I started to get really tired of that and kind of worn down by it, and being, you know, worn down by like every poem being like, and that's why I suck, you know? And it was really a challenge to bring something else in, and for it to make it not corny, to bring something else, like some sort of light to balance that, and to not make it sort of like saccharine, was like also a craft challenge. And so I think that was also a challenge in honoring like the other parts of me, except for the kind of like self-deprecation, which I might just go to on instinct. Yeah.
I have but maybe short question. I was curious right now what your favorite colors are, what your favorite words are. Could be this week or today. Miriam, you ended with repair on the screen, so I'm just curious what words or colors you come back to in the moment.
So very short, repair, blue.
Oh no. Also repair in blue. I don't know. I don't know. There's just so many good words. But today we read a word with the word chiaroscuro in it, and that's the one that's been rattling around in my head. So that's for today. And then I did also recently teach Maggie Nelson's Bluettes in a class, and so it's gotta be blue also. All right.
Thank you, Lena Wolff and Franny Choi. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. It was a really great night.